Hey guys, welcome to Whiskey and Literature. I'm your host, Captain Mike. I'm excited about tonight's video because we're drinking whiskey again. I always say it's been a long day at work, and today was one of those super long days. I left for work at 6 o'clock and didn't get home until 8:30 at night. So it's whiskey and then it'll be time to call it a night. But I was working on my spreadsheet yesterday. It's been a while, a couple of months maybe since I had updated that, and I try and keep track of the bottles that I have. And I realized I was a couple months out of date, and I hadn't put the date that I purchased the bottles, and I even put the store on them. So I went back, added the bottles I hadn't added, and I added two of the ones I already had on my spreadsheet, the date purchased and the store that was purchased from. And I recognized the date as I was doing this. And yesterday, 1 year ago, I bought the 2 bottled and bonds from Redwood Empire. Now I popped the top a couple days ago on the Grizzly Beast, and I did a 4-state bottled and bond bourbon blind. And so the Grizzly Beast was in that one. And I hadn't opened the Rocket Top until last night, had a very small sip of it. Put some more in here in the glass. It's been sitting there for about 20 minutes or so. Thought I'd just do a quick video, as quick as I can, and tell you how I think about the Redwood Empire Rocket Top Bottled and Bond Straight Rye Whiskey. So 1 year ago, I would not even have been able to tell you what bottled and bond meant. That's the honest truth. While I was at work yesterday, I was talking to a coworker who has been drinking whiskey for a long time. And I mentioned that I had the Grizzly Beast bottled and bond, and he didn't know what the bottled and bond meant. And so I got to whiskey nerd out on him for a little bit. Some guys I think are interested in that, and some guys get quickly turned off when I start explaining things like that, things that I've learned myself in the past year. Right now though, I really like bottled and bond whiskeys. I feel like they're special for some reason. I don't know what it is about that proof and that minimum age that just kind of sets it apart from all the other whiskeys. So if I'm going to the store and I can choose between a bottled and bond and not bottled and bond, if it's the same distillery or something and I don't know what I really am looking for, I'm gonna go with the bottled and bond because I know that's been for me a pretty safe bet. But anyway, Rocket Top Redwood Empire. I was confused when I purchased this because I had also bought the cask strength rye bourbon and their kind of boo rye, and it was $10 cheaper than the bottled and bond. And I didn't understand why 100 proof would have been cheaper than the 116 or 118 proof that the cask strength was, because I didn't realize what all the requirements were for a bottled and bond. Let's go through that just real quick. Bottled and bond, what does that mean? It means that it's from a single distillation season in a single distillery. So we know it's not a blend of rye from different distilleries or different ages. We know it's aged for at least 4 years and in a US bonded warehouse, and it's bottled at exactly 50% ABV or 100 proof. So those are kind of the requirements for bottled and bond. And me as the end consumer, when I go to the store, what I'm realizing is, okay, what I really care about is that it's 100 proof and it's at least 4 years old. And both those are pretty awesome. And so I do, like I said, I look for bottled and bonds. How about you? I bought this bottle simply because I thought it looked really cool. Rocket Top, I had gotten a couple of their other expressions. I think the labels are fairly cool. The bottle is pretty ordinary, but the labels look pretty sweet. So I went ahead and picked it up, and it sat on the shelf for 1 year as I bought all these other bottles. I believe batch 3 is out. Certainly in the bourbons, I'm kind of seeing that circulate. This is batch 2. I haven't seen anyone in my local area here with the batch 3 of the rye, but I'm assuming coming pretty quick. One thing that I think Redwood Empire does really well on their cask strength and on their bottled and bonds is they put out the information. And I'll put a close-up on this on the screen here. This is something that I wish that most distilleries would do. we whiskey nerds, I think it's great information. So I'll put a close up on that and I'll kind of read it to you. Well, first of all, Redwood Empire, Rocket Top. Straight rye whiskey, distilled, Sonoma County, California, bottled in bond. This is batch 2, straight rye whiskey. So this was distilled in the spring of 2017, and it was bottled the summer of 2022. So just over 5 years old. Lot size is 55 barrels. I haven't done the math. 55 barrels, how many bottles does that equate to? Really, you don't know. I mean, how much loss do they have in those barrels through the years? I don't know. But I would think that's a kind of a smaller batch, 55 barrels. This is batch 2 again. And interestingly enough, this is a 4-grain whiskey. I don't have a lot of 4-grain whiskeys on my shelf. I have 204 or 5 bottles now, according to my spreadsheet. And I bet less than 10 of these, for sure, are 4-grain whiskeys. But let's go through the mash bill here. It is 87% rye, 5% wheat, 5% malted barley, and 3% corn. So a high rye, not one of those we call them, or I call them Kentucky style ryes, where it's barely legal, 51%. No, that's a fairly high rye. It's pretty nice. So it goes through what's required to be a bottled and bond product, and where they got the name from, Rocket Top, it's a tree. Okay, cool. And it says aged for 5 years. That is a great label. Like I said, I wish that more distilleries would put out that kind of information from us whiskey nerds. And I understand, really I do, that the average consumer does not care. And if you're not a straight whiskey, or if it's a blend, of course you can't put out the mash bills of all the different blends. That's just some common sense. But I think kudos to you, Redwood Empire, for this label. I really dig it. Okay, Rocket Top. So opened this last night. I really enjoyed it. I do drink a lot of ryes. I would consider myself more of a rye guy than a bourbon guy. And if I'm doing bourbon, I like the high rye bourbons. I mean, I'm not opposed to drinking a very sweet, low rye bourbon, but my preference would be for a rye bourbon. And the ryes are nice. I find that as I've been drinking more and more in the past year, I think my palate is evolving. Part of that's just, it's changing. And then also as I drink more whiskey, I'm able to experience more of the whiskey, if that makes sense. Hopefully. So, all right. Do you have any Redwood Empire? Have you tried any others? Do you have the batch 3? I'm looking for those now. If I see those on the shelf, I've added those to the bottles that I'm kind of actively looking for. I'm looking for that Jack Daniel's single barrel proof rye. Haven't seen anyone in the Bay here at all. Looking for batch 3 of the Redwood Empires. A couple of the bottles like that as I walk into the stores, I'm hunting for. On the Elmer T. Lee. Gosh dang it if I can find an Elmer T. Lee anywhere in the Bay for MSRP. So I go all the Walmarts and Winn-Dixies and anyway, okay. Let's get at it. It's definitely a rye, but it's a different than the MGP ryes that I normally drink. Because I like those high rye ryes, so that's MGP. And a lot of those bottles, the High West, the other Redwood Empires, the Stellum, the Bullet Rye, I believe a lot of these are just MGP ryes, and once you drink enough of those, you can catch those notes. And this is a different nose. You still have those classic rye notes, some baking spices in there, but there's also some more fruitiness. I'm gonna say we start out with some cherryness, and there's some other fruits in there. It's not I think of like High West Double Rye and Rendezvous Rye. It just kind of punches me in the face. And even the Whistle Pig, some of those ryes, the Piggyback, it's 6 years, and it's just really it's that high rye, and I feel like it's more present, if you will. It's more in your face and aggressive, and this is a softer nose. No heat on it, Just nice. A little bit of fruitiness rolling into those baking spices and the rye spices that we're used to. Cheers. Talking to a coworker today, and he said, "Man, you sure sound like you drink a lot of whiskey." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I probably have a pour or two of whiskey every day." It's been, you know, every now and again I'll have a really long day and just have to get up early in the morning, so I'll just get home, just take a shower and crash. But most nights I'll have a couple pours. Frankly, my whiskey collection would just keep growing, and I would never kill a bottle if I didn't keep drinking on a regular basis. The palate really matches the nose. There's some of those cherry undertones that hits me initially. Some cherry sweetness, some cherry candy. Like I'm thinking like a hard, like one of those hard cherry candies. Not over into like a cherry cough drop or something, but just like a cherry candy. And then it was fading into that those rye spices on the palate. A little bit of heat. It's not as dry. It's a little more sweet than the MGP type ryes that I'm used to. Just initial bit of sweetness, and then we roll into those cinnamon notes. There's some heat, some cinnamon, some spice, and it's just a lingering heat, and it's just slowly warming. And I've had a small pour already before this this video of a different whiskey, but I'm still getting some gentle warmth and heat coming from the whiskey, and it's really, really nice. It's a nice finish. It's not an aggressive rye. Some guys drink those, I keep going back to the MGP, those aggressive ryes, and it's just so overpowering and overwhelming. It is a very nice, the notes are very nice. It's not super complex or overwhelming, and it's not a very aggressive rye, but it's really nice. And I don't know how much having the 4 grains affects that. Maybe some of that wheat. Maybe that's just kind of tamping it down a little bit. Maybe just enough. I'm a fan. I'm gonna be looking for the batch 3. I'm enjoying this batch 2. And in fact, I saw the batch 2 bourbon on the shelf, and I think I'm gonna go grab another one of those if I can find it back on the same shelf again. But definitely will be hunting for the batch 3 as well. But this Bottled and Bond straight rye Redwood Empire, I think is a pretty good whiskey. I'm sorry, I paid $89 for this bottle, and I think that's the MSRP. I've seen some $70 MSRP, but everywhere I've looked, it's still got $89 to $90 is the MSRP, and I think that's what you're gonna pay. So is it worth that? I mean, that's 2-3 times what double rye. It's twice what Piggyback from Whistle Pig. It's just barely above, say, Rendezvous Rye from High West. So $89. It's also less than the Stellum Rye, the Fibonacci blend, and the Black Rye, which were excellent ryes, I really thought. So $89 for this non-MGP Bottled and Bond. You know what? I'm a fan, and I got no problem paying $89 for this. And I'm gonna go to the store tomorrow, and if I can find one of these, I'm gonna buy a batch 2 or a batch 3 if I can find one on the shelf. And I think if you are scared of ryes or you don't like that aggressive ryes, perhaps this is right up your alley. Maybe go find a friend who's got one and get a pour, and then go buy a bottle if you can find one. Not readily available. I think they come out certain times of the year. It's not shelf stable, so definitely if you can find one, I would suggest you grab it. And that's my video for tonight, guys. If you enjoyed it, like it. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything. Subscribe to see more of my content. Again, this year in 2023, I'm reading 52 books in 52 weeks, and the links to those reviews are in my channel. And as I finish those reviews, I'm adding them there. So I do book and whiskey reviews. And I hope you're reading something good and drinking something great. Turn the pages, my friends, and stay thirsty.